In this video, I'll teach you the various methods to select objects. In AutoCAD, we have a number of editing commands which are used to modify objects. And whenever you give an editing command, you will get a select object prompt. For example, when I give the move command, I'll just click on move. I've got the select object prompt. And when I give copy command, you will get the same prompt. What is meant by this prompt? Whenever you get this prompt, you are supposed to select the objects to be edited with the best suitable methods. In this context, a systematic knowledge of various methods to select objects is highly essential in AutoCAD. And in this video, we will explore these methods in detail. To try various object selection methods in AutoCAD, we have to start with an editing command. So I'll just click on the move command and I've got the select object prompt. I'll just zoom into this area. I just want to copy this chair. So I just made a click. So I've got a message, 1 found. Then one more click, you have got a message, 1 found and 2 total. One more click, 1 found, 3 total. Likewise, more and more objects will get added to the selection set. So what is meant by selection set? Selection set is defined as the collection of objects which is prepared by the user to perform an editing command. So the picking can be treated as an object selection method. So you have to perform individual picks. So this method becomes often inconvenient, especially when you have to select more than one objects at a time. This is where you should learn collective selection methods. I just want to move this wardrobe from this position to a different position. So I'll click on move command. If I perform selection using picking, then I have to make several picks. So what I'll do is I'll just bring the cursor over here and left click and drag the mouse. You can see that it becomes a blue rectangle. And I'll pick the opposite corner point over here. This rectangle is called a standard window, which will select all the objects which are fully within the window. So if you want to get a standard window, you have to make a click on a particular location where absolutely there is no objects, and you have to drag the mouse rightward. So the direction of drag is important. But if you drag the mouse leftward, you will get a different type of window. Let's see that window. So I'll give move command again and I'll keep the cursor over here, make a click. This time I'll drag the mouse leftward and I'll make a click here. So this is a green dotted rectangle, and when you click the opposite corner point, you can see that the software select the objects which are fully within as well as crossed by this rectangle. So that's a property of a crossing window. So here the direction of drag should be leftward. A standard window can also be obtained by typing the letter W at the select object prompt. So in that case, even if you drag leftward, it becomes a standard window. The direction of drag is not important if you type W. Similarly, at the select object prompt, if you type C for the crossing window, then even if you drag rightward, you will get a crossing window. Remember, W for standard window and C for crossing window. Instead of rectangular window, you can also make use of irregular polygons to perform selection. We have two types of irregular polygons that can be used at the select object prompt to perform selection. One is called window polygon or WP. Another one is called crossing polygon or CP. So I'll give move command again. At the select object prompt, I'll type WP for window polygon. So it'll ask you to define the corners of a polygon. So I'll just click to define the corners. Okay, then I've selected all these objects. Now you can see that it will select only those objects which are fully within the window or enclosed by the window. And that's a property of a standard window. So functionally, it will behave like a standard window, but in appearance, instead of a rectangle, a window polygon is an irregular polygon. Similarly, you can try crossing polygon. So I'll move again and I'll type CP for crossing polygon and I'll click to define the corners. You can see that this irregular polygon appears in green color. And when you give an enter, you can see that it has selected those objects which are fully enclosed as well as touched by it. How will you know which all objects are selected? When you look at the screen, you can see that the appearance of the selected object got changed. Next method of object selection is called the fence selection. You can access the fence by typing F at the select object prompt. I'll explain it with an example. I would like to move all these chairs from the table. So if I select the entire dining table set using a standard window like this, the table will also get selected. But I don't want to select the table. So what I'll do is I'll give move command and I'll go to fence option. So I'll type the letter F for fence and I'll just pick a point like this. Now pick one more point. I'll get dotted lines connecting all these points. These lines are called fence lines, and the software select all those objects which are touched by these fence lines. Now I can select the base point here and the second point here. So the fence option selects all those objects which are touched by the fence lines, which are created by picking points. Next, I'll talk about lasso selection. In AutoCAD, when the cursor is directly over an object and when you left click, that particular object will get selected. But when the cursor is not directly over an object and when you left click and drag the mouse, you will be able to perform a freehand selection. And this selection is called a lasso selection. And whatever is captured within this selection will get selected. This is called a window lasso selection. Similarly, you can drag the mouse leftward and you can perform a crossing lasso selection. So it will have the same property as that of the crossing window. By default, when you left click and drag, you'll be able to perform lasso selection because that is enabled. But if you want to get a rectangular selection instead of lasso selection, then you have to change the value of a variable, and this variable is called pick auto. So I'll type pick auto. Pick auto variable by default is given the value 5, and I'll set the value of this variable to 1. And when the cursor is not directly over an object, and when you click and drag, you will get a standard window when you drag rightward, and when you drag leftward, you will get a crossing window. Next, we will see the method to select all the objects from the screen. This is a ground floor plan. Suppose I want to make a first floor. All I have to do is I can copy the entire ground floor and I can perform some editing operations to make the first floor. So I'll click on copy command in the modify panel. When I'm asked to select objects, I can simply type the letter ALL for all. When you type all the objects on the screen will get selected. It'll ask you for a base point and a second point, and you have got a copy of it. So typing all at the select object prompt is always easy and convenient when you want to select all the objects from the screen. Now we will see two shortcuts in selections, which will help you save time and effort. I want to take a copy of this chair, for example. I'll go to copy command and I'll select the objects to be copied. I'll select the base point and a second point. I want to move this particular chair slightly forward. So in that case, I can give move command. When I'm asked to select the objects, I can type the letter L. L stands for last. You're already aware that AutoCAD memorizes the most recently given command, which can be repeated by giving an enter. And AutoCAD memorizes the most recently plotted point, which can be accessed by inputting at the select object prompt. Similarly, AutoCAD will also memorize the most recently created object. At any point of time in your drawing session, if you want to access it, you can type the letter L at the select object prompt. Now it will ask you for a base point and second point. This is a time saver, since typing L at the select object prompt is always faster than picking that object using the mouse. Now we will see the next shortcut in object selection. Just now we have discussed that AutoCAD memorizes the most recently drawn object. Similarly, AutoCAD also memorizes the most recently prepared selection, and which can be accessed by inputting P at the select object prompt. P stands for previous. Let's see an example. Now I would like to move these two chairs onto left side. So I'll click on the move command. I'll select the objects using the standard window, and I'll choose this as a base point on the screen, and I'll move the mouse leftward, and I'll keep this as a second point. Now I would like to take a copy of the same set of objects onto this side. So I'll go to copy command. When I'm asked to select objects, I don't have to go and select these objects again, but instead I can type the letter P at the select object prompt. So P stands for previous. Those objects got selected. Now it will ask you for a base point and a second point. So this is how you make use of the previous selection. Next we will see the various methods to edit a selection. Suppose I want to reuse the same objects which are kept in this bedroom on some other bedroom. So I'll go to copy command and I'll select all these objects using a standard window. After I selected it, I realized that I want to remove all these objects from the selection because I don't want the objects in the bathrooms to be selected. So what I can do is I can type the letter R at the select object prompt. When you type R, your select object prompt changes to remove objects. You can use any standard object selection methods to remove the objects from the existing selection. Now I have removed all these objects, and I'll remove the door as well. After I removed these objects, I realized that by mistake I have removed this door and I want to include the door into my selection. As long as this prompt remains as remove objects, whenever you make a selection, all those objects will get removed from the existing selection. Now I want to add objects. So what I can do is type the letter A for add. You will get the select object prompt back. Now if I make a selection, all those objects will get added to my selection. So by typing the letter R, you will get remove object prompt and you can remove object from the selection. And by typing A, you can come back to the select object prompt so that you will be able to add more and more objects onto the existing selection set. In AutoCAD, there is a shortcut to select the same type of objects existing in the same layer in one go. I'll demonstrate it. I'll select this particular line of the stair and I'll right click, and here you will get an option called select similar. Just click on it. Now what happened? AutoCAD has selected all the lines which are existing in the same layer, and this particular stair is existing in a layer called stair. You will get complete information about the layers from the layer panel, and we will have an exclusive video on layers later. Now you can give any editing command. For example, I want to erase all these objects, so you can just give erase. In fact, when I went to select similar, these lines hasn't got selected. That is because these lines are existing in a different layer. When you click on these lines, you can see that these lines are in 0 layer. Now I'll just give undo to get those objects back. Have you noticed any change in the way I have performed this editing command? I have prepared the selection first using the select similar option, then I gave an editing command. In fact, in AutoCAD, you can perform editing in two different ways. The first approach is verb noun method. In this method, you first give the editing command, then you select the objects to be edited. This is exactly what we have done previously. For example, I'll give erase command, which is called the verb or action. Then I'll select the object to be edited, which is called the noun. That means at the select object prompt, I have selected the required number of objects to be edited, and those objects got erased. In the second approach is called a noun verb method, in which you first make the selection, then you perform the editing command. For example, I'll select the dining table set, then I'll give the erase command. That's exactly what you have done in the case of stairs. You can stick to any of these methods depending upon the requirement. Next, I'll teach you the concept of groups in AutoCAD. We can combine two or more objects as a single unit in AutoCAD for the purpose of selecting all these objects in a group in one click. So let's see that. First of all, we have to create a group. That is done by clicking on the group icon in the group panel. It'll ask you to select the objects, but I would like to give a name. So click on the name and I'll call it as chairs because I want to combine all these chairs as a single unit. So I'll call it as chairs. Then it'll ask you to select objects. Now I'll perform a selection using a standard window. I'll give an enter. Now when you make a click, you can see that all these objects, including the text, got combined as a single unit. Now if I want to copy these objects, just go to copy command and you can click anywhere on the group to select the entire object in the group. I'll pick the base point and a second point. Now you can see that certain unwanted objects got included in the group. So whenever you want, you can edit objects in a group to get rid of unwanted objects. For that, you have to first select the group, then I'll click on the edit group icon. So we have various options over here like add objects, remove objects, etc. Presently, I want to remove objects. So I'll click on remove objects and I'll select the text as well as this particular line and this one from the group. Now when you make a click, you can see that we have removed the text object as well as those two unwanted lines from the group. Sometimes you may have to edit the objects in a group individually. So in that case, how will you make a selection? For example, if I want to take a copy of this two-seater chair, when I make a selection, the entire group is selected. You can always turn off the group selection by clicking on this button. Once you turn it off, the group selection mode is turned off and you'll be able to select the objects in a group individually. But since the group is existing in this drawing, the moment you activate the group selection, you'll be able to work with the group. Alternatively, you can also access this group at the select object prompt. I'll just disable the group selection mode. Now you can select the objects individually. Now I want to access the same group for an editing command. For example, I'll just give move. At the select object prompt, when I type the letter G, G stands for group. It'll ask you for a group name. I'll type the group name as chairs. Now the entire group got selected. I can pick the base point and second point to copy it. So this is how you access a group at the select object prompt even if the group selection mode is turned off. You can delete a group permanently by clicking on the ungroup icon and you can select the group that is to be deleted. So just click it. Now that group is exploded and deleted permanently. So this is all about the concept of groups. Before I conclude this topic, I would like to introduce one more method of object selection, which is called quick select. You should access the properties palette to get this particular mode. You can get this panel by typing the command PR at the command prompt for properties, or else you can use the shortcut key Ctrl+1. Then you have quick select over here. Just click on the quick select, then you will get a quick select dialog box. You can prepare a selection from the entire drawing, or else you can select the objects by clicking against this particular button, and you can select certain objects from the screen and you can define a condition. Based on that condition, you can perform a selection. Now presently, I would like to select the entire drawing. So you can choose entire drawing and you can select the object type. Suppose I want to select all the lines which are existing in a particular layer. So you can go to layer and I would like to select all the lines in the 0 layer. It will display all the layers which are existing in this drawing. From this, I would like to choose 0. So I'll give 0 and I'll give OK. Now you can see that AutoCAD has selected all the lines which are drawn in the zero layer. Since I have already prepared the selection, I can execute an editing command now, which is called noun verb method. Now I'll just click on the copy command. Now it will ask you for a base point and a second point. This is the best method to perform such a complicated selection. So that's all about the various object selection methods in AutoCAD. Depending upon the situation, you should be in a position to locate and implement the best suitable method.